ground shake.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Game Hub. I'm your host GamerK, and it is now time for a Top 13 video. And it's about a topic that should get a lot more credit, but I talk about it a lot on my channel once in a while, and it's a series that I have fell in love with for years. A Facebook game that got #1 on Facebook when it first came out, and ended on 8 seasons of gameplay. And I think that's amazing. And that's not 8 seasons developed in between a year or so. That's 8 seasons in 8 years, which is incredible. I'm talking about my favorite crime game, Criminal Case. I don't play it as much as I only played the first 11 cases and then decided to watch a YouTuber play it because it was like a TV series. The way his reactions went, him voicing the characters. Yeah, it's one of those text box games where there's no voice. So basically every DS game. But now it's time to go through Season 3 of the game and my top 13 Criminal Case cases of Season 3, World Edition or remade Save the World. And, oh boy, I had to go a little bit back and forth. So, also, bit of spoiler alert because I will be going over the case, the side story, and basically the overall opinion of the case itself, but not going too much into it. So, spoiler warnings for the Season 3. Now, let's get down to it. Coming in at number 13 is the only case from the Eurasia area, Oh Deadly Night. There's a good number of after Season 3, there was about, like, one Christmas episode, Christmas case per season, which I kind of liked and at the same time didn't like, because you can kind of see where they all go half the time. In Oh Deadly Night, a guy dressed in a Santa suit is found in a frozen lake, torso frozen. And it turns out he was killed with an ice bullet. Killing St. Nick on Christmas Eve. I defy you to find a better middle finger to Christmas. And while going through the game, and it's discovered that it is our partner, Archer, Jack Archer's girlfriend, and Mossad agent, Asal. Fortunately, this is one of the cases where it was a good thing, considering she was given explicit orders to seduce and kill the victim because he was working for a giant criminal organization known as Sombra. We don't discover Sombra until the second area of the game, which is a grand criminal organization, somewhat like the Templars, just without the mystical bullshit. So, Asal went to trial. It was a sanctioned murder, so she gets off scot-free. And then after that, her and Archer's relationship kind of hits the cliffs a little bit, which sucks, because I really like them together. Not only that, but I really think that they're a good match. It's kind of like a mix between Ziva and Tony and Archer and Lana from their respective shows. So, okay case, it's on the bottom because it doesn't have any good factor to it. Coming in number 12, When Shadows Fall. This is the second final case of the first area, taking place in Venice. Oh, Venice. Canal rides, beautiful ocean streets, and a dead pope on a statue. Yeah. This one was kind of easy to predict, considering a big thing that Criminal Case tends to do is within a certain area area is where they batch up the cases. If the suspect appears a good number of times, more than likely they'll end up as a murderer or as a victim. Just saying that right now. It's kind of the formula that they went with, and I do enjoy it. The killer was Brother Klaus, an albino monk from the first case. And he's in league with the Promethean cult, an ancient cult trying to unify Europe under one banner. And they are also working for Sombra. They're not with Sombra, they are working with them, much like how a bunch of evil people worked for the Templars in the Assassin's Creed series. He kills the Pope, hoping that this will start a new election for a new Pope and someone within the Promethean cult to rise to power and unify Europe. And after he does this, and after he kills him, and after the additional investigation, he lights himself on fire, so he won't give away any more secrets. Really good. This was one of the cases where I knew, like, if this is what they do before the end of the area, the season has me hooked already. Come on, number 11, The Impossible Dream, the final case of the first area, Europe. And oh boy, is it a good one. Jacqueline, who was a writer and I think journalist or something. I'm not 100% sure on that because it's been a good number of years. So my memory is kind of off sometimes when it comes to these cases. She told us in the previous case that to go to Spain because the Prometheans are there. And she is killed in the most Spain of ways. By put into a bronze bowl and literally cooked alive. All I gotta say is about this game, even though the amount of crime shows that I've seen in my years, this game has meticulously created pretty imaginative murder weapons and scenarios for every single case, and I enjoy it. And it is obvious that every single suspect is within the Promethean cult, save for DuPont, who is our historian. He is in there just to infiltrate them to get some information. It is revealed that Archibald, who is a banker or something like that, again, it's been so long, he is the Promethean leader, and he did so in order to keep the Prometheans in power by killing Jacqueline. We disguise ourselves as members and tell him to confess, and he's an idiot and thinks this isn't weird at all. The Prometheans are done, and the big thing about this case is what happens at the end of the case, where our Chief Ripley, after toasting defeating the Prometheans, she's shot with a poison dart and dies. And that's what leads us to the Sahara area, which honestly is to find the elusive sword, a mercenary, a mercenary killer. And that's what starts off the next area. I love it how this early in the season, they throw us a twist, and it just works every step of the way. Coming in number 10, The Killer in the Rice. The first case in the East Asia. It takes place in China, so I think it's the East Asia district. Where we've been looking for the headhunter, which is another Sombra agent, and finding out the evil schemes that are happening within this world, within this area. And we've come across this young kid who was killed, and the killer turned out to be a local girl in the village who said that he was weak. She set traps for him, and she had to kill him. She was poisoned by the Sombra mythology, the weak die and all that, the strong live, and all that kind of twisted BS. So the girl is sent to prison, and then we find out more about how Sombra has been recruiting children from many, many regions. And that's where this area starts to get a little dark. And honestly, I love it, and at the same time, I don't like it. But it's one of those areas where it's halfway, so it's getting better. It's getting good. Number 9, Murder by Proxy. Going back a couple cases, the first area of the Sahara region, we find out that a businessman has been killed in the same manner that Chief Ripley was. A poisoned dart to the neck. And this is the first case where we meet Asal, where she is pretending to be an exotic belly dancer in order to get information. And, she's definitely Ziva of this game from NCIS. What was I talking about? Oh, right, the case. Turns out that the victim's girlfriend, who was an American, she killed him because Okay, I don't like talking about this topic when it comes to this stuff, but let's just say she was in a relationship with him, and he did something terrible, and said that because she's an American woman and he has power in this town, this was in Morocco, I believe, this case, and he says that he can get away with whatever he wanted. So the sword gave her a way to kill him and make it look like someone else did it, while at the same time throwing us off the sword's scent. I really did enjoy this case. It gave us a kind of more understanding about how the sword operates, kind of misdirecting us so good. The case was pretty fun and kind of destructive at the same time, and meeting us a great way to throw us into a loop for us all by making us think she's one thing and then bring her back later on. It just works. It's just a fantastic case to start off another area, and the hunt for the sword. Coming at number 8, The Murder Games. Yes, I know it's based on the Hunger Games, and is there characters that look like the people from the Hunger Games? No, and I think that's the best part about this. This is the final case of East Asia where we're looking for the headhunter. Turns out that Sombra recruits young children and puts them through this, again, like the Hunger Games trial, where only one will survive, and that one will go through the training, so it's kind of sad. Throughout this area, we were told by a young girl in the second case that her brother had gone missing, and you can guess where it's going, has been involved with Sombra. And he is the victim of this case. We've been searching for him throughout these 6 cases of this area, and then he's the final victim. When we didn't get to meet him, kind of threw me for a loop, and in a good way. Turns out that the headhunter was Obasama, a very old woman who was in the second case of the area, who looked like to be a great old granny or whatever. But she was really the headhunter who trained all these kids. And it turns out that I can't remember the kid's name because we never met him, so I can't really remember his name. But he wasn't going through with this whole thing. So Obasama took it upon herself to eliminate a possible threat to Sombra by shooting him with an arrow. And this case dives more into Sombra's ideology and the manipulative and unhumane ways they do things. And it's really good. It's really cool at developing more of their story and background, but at the same time, you want to put them down as quick as possible. It's like a crime. It's like a crime show, and it sucks you in a good way. And the case is really, really good. And then we find a video after the whole case is done that sends us to Eurasia, which is basically New Zealand, Australia, places around that area. And oh boy, is it satisfying to finally put the headhunter down. Coming at number 7, A Stab in the Dark. This case is a little bit on the generic side, but at the same time, it throws me for a loop that very rarely happens. The second case of Eurasia, where a woman was stabbed to death at a restaurant, and later in the case, her boyfriend and her friend tries to jump off a ledge, and we kind of talk him down. He's very destructive and very emotional about this. And during the case, we find out more about the victim's ties. Well, not ties, but kind of she discovered Sombra in a way. And then the murder took place, and then the murder finds it, and that, I'm babbling a little bit. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. But basically, the guy who was all distraught about his girlfriend being died, yeah, he was the murderer because he was denying everything when we confront him. And then Elliot, basically the Abby Shuto of the Bureau, who's a goth-looking kid, but he's a great hacker. He discovers that the victim discovered that he was working for Sombra, this criminal organization, so he had to eliminate her. And before he can be jailed, he takes Elliot hostage, and this is one of the few times in criminal case where after a killer is revealed, we end up in a hostage situation, which honestly, I kind of wish they did a little bit more. Maybe if the final season went on a little bit longer than it did, because of the things that happened in Paris, because Criminal Case is based in Paris. Pretty simple games. It's pretty good that we find out more information about Sombra while also dealing with getting Elliot safe, which I really enjoyed. It gives you a little bit of an adrenaline rush when the shock factor happens. And it's really well done. It's not cliche in a way. Come on, number 6. Down to the Wire. Very rarely will I put a case that's almost at the end, because this is the second last case overall the entire season. And it takes place somewhere in Canada because it's about hockey and the killer eats poutine, and only in Canada can you get good potatoes, cheese curds, and gravy. Yeah, it makes me proud to be a Canadian. So basically, a prime minister or a businessman of some sort is murdered with a garrote in his private box at a hockey game. And throughout this district, in the previous districts, we've been finding out about El Rey, who is the king and the leader of Sombra, which, in a case I'm going to talk about in a little bit, we find out that the original Sombra retired, but is still in the criminal activity. So the torch is passed on to a new El Rey. So that's who we're looking for in this case. And dear Lord, if numerous times I've said it in this game that they can throw me for a loop, but I can sometimes guess where the whole thing's gonna end and play out, it works for me, and sometimes it doesn't. Where Hector, who was the Brazilian governor or something, I can't remember, from the last area. He only appeared in one other case, so I really couldn't picture it about who he be. And good Lord, he is the El Rey. I mean, they kind of throw you off your game by throwing in like a spy from another area. The guy who used to work for Sombra in the Japan area, and then put a Saul there, and damn, she always looks good. Like, I knew it wasn't going to be a Saul, because that would be so much of a big letdown of a twist. But having it be someone who we interviewed once again, brilliantly done. And then it's revealed that he doesn't have hair, he has burn marks, and that his family died in a fire, but he survived, and he really got into the Sombra ideology, and the original Sombra raised him up and gave him the torch. I will admit, it threw me for a loop, and I really did enjoy it. It was a cool case, but we got more to do that top it because of how well the case was done around it. So halfway up the list. So not bad for the new El Rey. And that king was dethroned and put to jail. Coming in at number 5, Operation Spyfall. The third final case of the season. So this one is before Down to the Wire, but it's over it in my list because of how good it is. Basically, in previous cases, like way in the third area, we took control of Sombra Satellite that they planned to take over all the world's technologies and everything like that. But we used it for our own ways in order to get certain codes for Sombra agents worldwide. We had to crash the satellite. Unfortunately, it turns out that a spy who was working not for Sombra, but against them, was found dead at the crash site. And also a Saul was there, injured herself. So she's right away a suspect, but also right away she's also a victim in a way. But she doesn't die. And then, to make it better, the killer in this case was Anya Ivanova, who was in the Eurasia area, and throughout every other case, a good number of cases throughout, a Russian spy who did this to join the winning side. After fighting Sombra for a good bit of the game, she decides to join the winning side and offer her services to get the satellite information. But the victim obviously tried to stop her, and she knocked out a Saul. And oh boy, see what happens when you switch sides that late? You end up in jail, and you're a failure. She is no Natasha Romanoff. I'm telling you that right now. It's a really good case because afterwards, we do get the information of other Sombra agents, but it's all locked down until we get like a decoder in order to break it, which leads us into the final two cases. Operation Spyfall was a really, really good case, and I honestly wish that this was done. I mean, it's hard to explain. I like how that they did it this late in the, like, right near the end of the game in order to build up that suspense for who El Rey is and the big twist that happens in every final case, and it's done perfectly. It's a great case. Also, it has some characters in it that I really enjoyed. Number 4, The King's Shadow. Final case, and in Colombia, which is the third final area of the game. And in this one, so after a little bit, in other cases, we found Michelle, who worked for Sombra, but then she defected because she didn't care for what they were doing anymore. She was a lawyer, and then she joined the Bureau after Eurasia after she gave us information on them. And I'm not going to say anymore because in a good number of cases, South America, this is where it takes place. South America. I knew if I thought about more. So we go to Colombia where the original El Rey was supposed to be. I mean, we find out about him first before we find out about the new El Rey. And the victim of the case is Michelle Zura, the one who defected. She was crushed by a bell in an old church. And it's Arsenio DeCosta, I can't remember his full name, but I just call him the original El Rey. He found her there, and for turning traitor and giving away that whole villain thing, foiling my plans, she deserved to die under my hand, and oh boy, and it also helps that every single suspect basically is with Sombra in a way or another, so it kind of makes that case like that really feel complete. And for a final case of an area, it does its job by giving us some wow factor, some revelations, and pushes us into the next area where it's all going to get worse from there. So, The King's Shadow, really, really good case. But now these top 3 are all final cases in respective areas, and it just gets better from there. Coming at number 3, The Darkest Hour, which is the final case of the season. And this one has a lot of heartbreak, a lot of shock value, taking place in good old New York City. And oh dear Lord, did they go all out for this. So it turns out that the President of the United States is kidnapped. No, I'm not talking about Max from Sam and Max. I'm talking about, okay, obviously not the real President of the United States. They came up with a character for that for the game because they can't really do the same they can't really do real life people, although they do base some of their characters on real life people, just a little, parody fun. But it turns out that earlier in the game, our profiler, Marina, her mother, Natasha, was working for Sombra and was a bit of a big old bee. And she is dead in the middle of Times Square. And not only that, but Marina is arrested for being thought to be affiliated with said victim and scumbag of a mother, and in turn with Sombra. And this case goes really, really all out with the with the amount of suspects. Usually it's 5 suspects, but they went above and beyond with 7, if I recall. This and it all ends here from season 1 are the only cases in the game to have more than 5 suspects, and I really, really did enjoy it. And it's got everyone from Baxter from Eurasia, who was a Sombra test subject, but now he's a good guy, and we got the traitor, the mole in the Bureau, who I'm not going to reveal. I'm going to save that for the final, for another video. The next, one of the next rankings on the list. But yeah, it is not revealed until later on. And also a bomb was placed in the Bureau headquarters by said mole. So once I get to one of the other the 1 or 2, I'm going to rant and rant. Well, not rant, but I enjoy it, but I'm going to rant because I hate this character now. And it's not revealed, and it is revealed later that is the secretary of the president, who is a terrible woman, to be in Sombra. Obviously, Sombra has to have someone high up with the president in order to manipulate his and after all their plans have failed, this is their last-ditch effort, and she killed Natasha after she helped in order to cut up loose ends. And Sarah Bennett, you are a big old bee. Not only does she knows we can't touch her without physical hard evidence, so she basically has her guards take us out, and then we find her in the catacombs under New York City, and she has the president, and we go down there with Jack and DuPont, our historian, because he knows the way. Jack gets shot in the ear because Sarah is evil and then DuPont takes a bullet for us, and then we put her down, and at the end of all this madness, we get the World Peace Prize for stopping Sombra by the world, and DuPont sadly passes. And it's something that hits hard because, like a game, a show, a book, a movie that you have watched for years and years, a good year for a season, and you develop a real attachment to these characters. When something happens to them, you worry. I mean, I know it's a game, but tell me I'm not the only one who feels like this with a show, a game, a movie, a book, whatever. The characters, you develop an attachment to them. You care about them. And when DuPont died, a bit of my heart snapped. A little bit. And then reading his diary about his ancestor, his grandfather, great-grandfather, whatever, that brings us into season 4. And it's a great ending to a worldwide season. And that's the ending, and that's only at number 3. Because the other 2 hit me in ways that really affect me. Like, it doesn't affect me, okay, some of them affect me emotionally, but at the same time, they screw me up mentally. So, let's get down to it. The darkest hour was dark, but light always comes out. God, I sound like a cliche Kingdom Hearts character. Oh well. Coming at number 2, Insides Out. The final case in East Asia. Yeah, because we are in India, Dubai, and all those places, if I'm recalling it correctly. Forgive me if geography wasn't my best subject matter in high school. But this is the end of the East Asia of India before we hit to China, Japan, and all that. This one has the tuk-tuk driver who appeared in a couple cases. He was gutted, which sounds gross, but I have to go into the dark. And turns out he had made a lot of enemies a while. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out who the murderer was going to be, because throughout this area, we have been diving a little bit into Sombra, because throughout this whole area, a guru yeah, a guru. We suspected him of working for Sombra by using a place called OM Meta Labs, which was a Sombra front to launder money. I honestly thought this because the guru was a hippie in season 2 with the whole in the area with in the desert with the aliens, but I think he got deneuralized like we did, and then for some reason he saw a bigger purpose and became a guru. Oh boy. Like throughout the area of this area, we all suspected the guru, and honestly, so did I, until it's revealed that Walter Goodfellow. Yeah, you think a guy named Goodfellow, you think I would have figured it out. He was going to be a twist bad guy. He was the Sombra agent. He was the guy who wasn't in Sombra. He worked for them because they gave him authority and power. And it was him that throughout this area tricked us into thinking that it was the guru, that we stayed on his tail and throw us off suspicion. All in an effort to give the headhunter a little bit more time so we wouldn't figure out a lot of it. He killed Sandeep and he made his skin into a drum and planted evidence in the guru's hideout in order to throw us off the trail. And a good number of times in a game, I can kind of see where a betrayal or where a twist will happen, like I've said numerous times. But this episode, and have it be like in the middle of the season, it's good to know that I can still be surprised. And the fact that it didn't just do it just to throw someone off the scent, it did it for story reasons as well. And it worked. It worked as heck. I had no idea the twist was going to happen until like the final set of the season of the area. And it's done really well. Good job. But now it's time for the case that hurt me and hurt me here as well. The number one case, Gamer Case number 1 for Criminal Case Season 3 is In Plain Sight. In the area after Eurasia, which would be Africa. Africa? Yeah, Africa. Our plane is shot down in Madagascar. And it turns out Sombra is tired of us spoiling their plans, so they have a trump card. Throughout the area of Africa, we've had a mole in the bureau from day one. It didn't hit me too hard until in the first case of the area, we found proof that someone on our gate sent out our coordinates to Sombra. And throughout the area, we're looking for the mole. And I come up with every conceivable idea of what happened. And then in plain sight, when we arrest Levine DeBrilles, who kind of looks like every rich girl in any TV show or movie, she was smuggling diamonds to fund Sombra's operations. Or they were being sold to Sombra operations in order for riches and all that. And then once we arrested her in the previous case, it hits hard, the traitor. Because once the suspects are our own team members. This is where Michelle Zura is her first case investigating because no one can be trusted. Elliot's a suspect. Cameron, one of our partners, is a suspect. Jack's a suspect. Lars is a suspect. Angela, our coroner, who is married to Lars, is a suspect. Like I kept trying to come up with a way of how this could be, or maybe the Sombra mole just planted evidence, but it's revealed that it's Angela, our coroner, who has been a Sombra agent right from the get-go. Right from the get-go. And she returns in the darkest hour and plants a bomb, and then she's finally put to jail. And I'm going back to that case because it hits a little bit harder for Lars, because after this area and then going into South America, he is depressed, he's pissed, and everything. And they have triplets. And in the final case, the darkest hour, she asks to play a video, which is the day their daughters were born. And oh my God, it hurts. She threw us off the trail through Africa to think it wasn't her. But then when Levine got caught, she had to kill her. But yeah, Angela's been and this is when Grace from season 1 becomes our new coroner, because we need a coroner for the crimes, to solve the crimes. But no, finding out that Angela was a traitor all along, it really hits you. And it even hurts. It not only affects you, but when one of your characters that you care for is married to the traitor, it hits them hard too, and that hits even you even harder. And although she did say that falling in love with Lars and having the triplets was the one thing that wasn't in any somber plan. She deviated from that plot, and then throughout the India area, once we break OM Metal Lab, she takes all that money and brings up the Spring Angels Foundation in order to help kids. And also because of the Headhunter area, they opened that up, and maybe she was trying to redeem herself a little bit if she ever had to betray us. But all that sympathy is gone in the darkest hour when she plants a bomb in our headquarters and we catch her doing it. So everything out of her mouth there is hollow, and it just hits even harder. And the fact that I could never have foreseen a twist like that in this game, makes every other... This was the betrayal to highlight all betrayals in the future seasons. Because the Chief being a traitor was one thing, Frank being a traitor was one thing, Angela being a traitor was one thing, and to go into the next future seasons and kind of hoping, oh my God, I hope this character isn't a traitor. This case cemented my disbelief once the season got to a certain point. It cemented my belief that every season will have a traitor of someone we know, and it always hits home. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me with this video, because Criminal Case is a fantastic season, and if you don't play it, play it. If you don't want to play it, watch it on YouTube. Go on Pitching Ace 88. He's one of the best, and yeah, Criminal Case is by far one of my favorite crime games. And that's it for this video, ladies and gentlemen. Like, comment, subscribe down below, and coming next week, I get a little evil as I come up with ideas for the next expansion in a wicked, wicked card game. This is Gamer K, logging out.